Hi, this is Jim Ave, and in this presentation I'm going to go over two assignments for our class, Kinesiology 792A, the progress reports and the courage and calling presentations. So first let's talk about the progress report. Your first one is due this week. You'll actually have a total of 3 progress reports, basically the second week after your or maybe look at it this way: second week, 2 weeks before your second and third portfolios when the next ones are due. So basically, the purpose of the progress reports is to keep you on course for completing the professional portfolio assignments. So it's a pretty brief report, in 1 to 2 paragraphs. Easiest way to think about it is 1 paragraph. What have you done? For like this first one, what have you done for weeks 1 and 2 to complete your professional portfolio? That should be pretty straightforward since we're doing a bunch of rough drafts. So that's what you should be writing down in your progress report. I want you to describe to me all the things that you've done in the first 2 weeks to complete your professional portfolio. Like I have down here where it says additionally, you need to demonstrate to me in these progress reports that you are spending about 3 to 6 hours per week working on your professional portfolio. So that's the first paragraph. What activities have you done to complete your professional portfolio? I can be reading, I can be writing, I can be actually writing your material. And then the second paragraph I'd like you to write on is goals that you have for the next couple weeks to complete your professional portfolio. So, like in the first one, progress report that's due this week, what goals do you have in weeks 3 and weeks 4 to complete your portfolio? And then in your second and third progress reports, you want to do the same kind of thing. What do you want to do in the next couple weeks to complete your next professional portfolios? Okay. The next part of the professional portfolio is reporting your number of hours that you've worked. And for our first progress report, you're going to report the number of hours you worked in weeks 1 and 2. As it says in a paragraph above, if you have multiple jobs, like some of you are both PE teachers and coaches. If you're doing your professional portfolio on your the PE standards, then you're just going to report the number of hours as a PE teacher. If you're doing your standards, your portfolios as a coach, you're going to report the number of hours that you coached, and the same thing with the strength and conditioning. If you're doing the strength and conditioning standards, you will just report the number of hours that you've worked in weeks 1 and 2 as a strength and conditioning professional. You don't have to describe anything that you've done during those weeks. You just have to tell me, in week 1 I worked 15 hours, and week 2 I worked 30 hours. So that's all you have to report. Then you'll see on the progress report 2, you'll report for weeks 3 through 6. Progress report 3, weeks 7 through 10. You also include your courage and calling reflection, which I'll talk about here in a second. Couple of things. Make sure that you have a title page for your assignment. Just like this is when you'd want to use the APA formatted document that is included in the Moodle orientation introduction assignment. Just go ahead and use that and follow all formatting kind of requirements that are expected for APA. Now I'm going to move to the courage and calling assignment, which is in Appendix E. You'll see in the class schedule that each week you're supposed to be reading specific chapters of the courage and calling text. And so for our first progress report, you're going to write a reflection for chapter 1. This is worth 5 points, and that will be added to the progress report. So the progress report is 10 points for the actual progress report, and 5 points for the reflection for courage and calling. So what I want you to do is write a 1 to 2 paragraph reflection. For the way I suggest that you write this thing is 1 paragraph as a review of chapter 1, and then 1 paragraph on how you can specifically apply the material as a PE teacher or coach, or strength and conditioning professional. You can even, how can you apply this material on a personal side? So when you so you write the 2 paragraphs for our first progress report. So you're just going to add this to your progress report. So you have your first chapter on the things that you've done this week, another paragraph on the things you've done this week, then another paragraph on your goals for the next 2 weeks, then your 1 to 2 paragraphs, probably 2 paragraphs on the courage and calling reflections. You should cite the text for this, since you're reviewing the material. You should be citing the Smith text for your reflections. And then the other thing that we'll do is we'll have a forum and threaded discussion for the courage and calling reflection. Did this for the first time in the fall semester with one of my other practicum courses, and I asked the students at the end of the course what they thought of doing the forum and the threaded discussions. They actually really enjoyed knowing what other students thought of this text, because this text is very practical, because what Smith is talking about in this text is, first he talks about what is a calling. What does that mean? To be called into a specific job, or vocation is the term. And he goes into great detail on what that means. So I ask you to the person reflect on this, and have you been called, or most of you at this point, you know that you've been called to be a PE teacher or a coach or a strength and conditioning person. And what does that mean? What's that look like as you go forward in your life? So what you'll do in the forum is you're basically just going to copy and paste your reflection that you'll turn in to me, so others can read what you've wrote. And then what you're going to do is also provide 1 to 2 open-ended questions. Now, what an open-ended question is are questions that cannot be answered with a yes or no response. So it has to be, when the student responds back to your questions, they can't just put yes or no. There has to be something that they have to have more of a thought than yes and no to it. So you'll post your reflection in the forum. You'll post 1 to 2 open-ended questions that you had about when you're reading the material. Typically, that's the best thing to do, is as you're reading that assigned material, what kind of questions kind of popped in your head. So those are questions that others may have too, but that's fine. And then what's going to happen is each student will read 2 other students your post and your questions, and then you'll answer the questions to 2 other students. Your answers should be at least 1 paragraph in length to each question. And once we get going into this, you'll kind of understand this. So it's 5 points for your initial post, then 5 points for responding to 2 students for 10 points total. So that's a total of 15 points. And again, I think you'll find this very interesting and helpful, reading what others learned through reading this text and their personal applications, and hopefully this will encourage you in your calling, in your vocation. If you have any questions about either the progress report or the courage and calling reflection, please post them in the Q&A forum. And I look forward to reading your assignments.